Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a close look at a foundational concept, faith. But maybe not in the way you usually think about it.
Yeah, we're deliberately sort of pushing past the abstract definitions.
Exactly. We're moving beyond feelings, beyond just theory, and looking squarely at how faith actually functions in the real world.
Through active obedience and, relentless action.
Our source material today is a really fascinating reflection by Pastor Huzikiam. And it's rooted in, probably one of the most famous verses on this, Hebrews 11.1.
Right. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We've all heard it.
We have, and it sounds almost poetic, doesn't it? Maybe even a bit impractical.
It can seem that way.
But our mission today really is to show you how this biblical definition is actually incredibly practical, maybe even the most demanding mandate there is.
It really forces you to see the difference, the huge gap between just theoretical belief, just nodding along saying, yeah, that's true, and the kind of faith that demands you actually do something. Step out, act, even when it looks impossible.
Or terrifying, or like you're the only one doing it.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's unpack that core idea from the source material. According to Pastor Hughes' reflection, what's the standard for, true biblical faith?
The essential thing is that its quality is defined by obedience. Simple as that. Not by the circumstances around you or, the emotional payoff you might get.
Okay.
The source basically says true faith is believing and obeying God's word regardless of the environment, regardless of the potential outcome.
So it's a straightforward process then?
Fundamentally simple, yeah. God speaks, we listen, we trust, and then we act accordingly. That's the sequence.
Even if, as you said, the circumstances look completely impossible, or the results are unpredictable, maybe even frightening.
Yes. That's the hard part. The source insists that doesn't negate the command to act. Obedience has to follow the word, not the feasibility assessment.
That really runs counter to how we often operate, doesn't it? We usually want the ducks in a row, wait until everything feels right, or we feel confident.
We do. We want certainty. But this kind of faith operates on a different kind of certainty. Certainty in the source of the command, not the outcome.
Right. And this leads to an interesting comparison the source brings up. It mentions a secular perspective from the editor, Mr. Mencken.
Yes. Mencken. He defined faith, famously, as believing the illogical and expecting the impossible.
Which, on the surface, sounds a little bit like that biblical idea of seeing the unseen. So where does Pastor Hugh draw the critical distinction?
The key difference is the object of the faith, Mencken's definition. That relies on human effort, manufacturing belief, kind of willing yourself to accept the illogical.
Okay.
Biblical faith, though, as the reflection clarifies, depends entirely on its object, God. It's not about us trying really hard to believe something weird.
It's a response.
Exactly. It's a response to God revealing something. The confidence isn't in our ability to believe, but in the absolute reliability of the one who spoke.
Okay, that makes sense. So if we accept this definition, faith as active obedience grounded in God's word, what are the concrete practical results? Because the source is clear. This isn't just internal.
No, not at all. The reflection outlines 3 tangible effects, things that active faith actually unlocks for us.
Okay, what are they?
First, it allows us to understand God's intentions, gives us clarity of purpose. Second, it lets us see what others cannot see, provides vision.
Right.
And third, it enables us to do what others cannot do. It gives us capability beyond the norm.
Understand, see, do, that shifts the whole paradigm, doesn't it? From just passively receiving something to proactively implementing it.
Absolutely. And there's a quote the source uses from Dr. Saunderson that just nails this. He said, "Faith treats the future as today and the unseen as the seen."
Wow. Say that again?
Faith treats the future as today and the unseen as the seen.
That connects everything. If you truly believe the unseen reality of God's plan, then you act now as if it's already real.
Yes. It demands this constant diligence, this proactive stance toward the world, no matter what the current metrics look like.
And to kind of anchor this idea of duty over comfort, action over passivity, the reflection shares a little story, an anecdote about a recent typhoon day in Taiwan.
Yeah, in Hualien, where Pastor Hughes' ministry is based, the government declared a day off, a sort of welfare measure for safety.
Right, a benefit.
But the irony that source points out is, often on those days, the actual storm wasn't that bad in their area.
So the benefit was there, the day off was granted.
Exactly. But it didn't necessarily help student learning, maybe didn't help businesses much. And the source uses this to make a point.
Which is?
Well, even with that welfare, that easy out, duty still calls, right? An office worker still has deadlines eventually. A student still needs to learn the material. The ease doesn't erase the responsibility.
Okay, I see the connection.
That's the bridge. If we feel compelled to do our jobs, even when we can take it easy, how much more should we pursue spiritual tasks with that kind of relentless effort?
Execution based on duty, not just on convenience or comfort.
Precisely. And that principle perfectly sets up the next part of our deep dive, looking at a real-world ministry that embodies this.
Right, which brings us to Pastor Hu Zikang's own ministry, a decades-long example of putting this execution idea into practice.
And this wasn't, a sudden thing. It started way back. Pastor Hu graduated from Taiwan Theological College in 1991.
Okay.
And he was inspired early on by another pastor, Lou Hooley, who challenged him.
Yeah.
So don't just focus on church attendance numbers, the usual metrics.
Focus on what instead?
Focus on great things for God's kingdom. Scylla. That phrase became his driving vision.
And that vision wasn't just a nice idea, it led to actual concrete commitment.
Absolutely. He volunteered for Beipu Church, this church in Hualien, back in 1991. And he's been serving there continuously ever since. That's 35 years.
35 years in one place.
Yeah. That kind of tenure itself speaks volumes about steadfastness, about sticking with it.
And they made that vision central, right? You mentioned it was physically part of the church.
They did. When they dedicated their new sanctuary, June 26, 1999, that motto, "Great Things for God's Kingdom," was inscribed right there behind the pulpit. A constant reminder.
Not just a mission statement on paper, but something they see every week.
Exactly. And the source even points out the English title of his book, These Great Region. That little dita apparently emphasizes doing.
Execution again.
Yes. You must execute. You must do. The whole framework seems designed to combat procrastination, that passive waiting we talked about.
So if you're committed to doing great things, you can't just stay within your local context, right? Especially in a place like Hualien.
That's the leap they made. Doing great things meant they couldn't be limited by geography, which led them into the digital space.
And this is where the story takes a turn and the numbers start getting, kind of mind-boggling for a regional ministry.
They really do. So in March 2024, just recently, Beipu Church launched this new initiative, the Gospel Big Refrigerator Medicine Box YouTube channel.
Okay.
And this wasn't just, uploading a sermon here and there. They brought in AI technology, built a dedicated team, nearly 10 people, specifically for this massive content pipeline.
Serious operation.
Very serious. But the truly staggering part, the thing that really illustrates this relentless execution, is the sheer volume of content they're producing.
All right, let's hear it. And as you listen to these numbers, remember that core idea. Faith as continuous, diligent effort, not waiting for perfect results or timing. Pastor Yu apparently just shared these figures with his own team recently.
Okay, get this. Since July 5th, 2022, so just over 2 years ago, Pastor Yu himself has personally hosted over 4,000 programs across 4 different shows.
4,000 hosted personally.
4,000?
In about 2 years. That averages out to, 5 or 6 programs recorded or uploaded every single day, including weekends.
That's the math. It sounds almost impossible, right? Especially for one pastor leading a local church.
It really does.
And that internal reaction, how is that possible? That's exactly the point the source is highlighting. That level of intense, consistent effort is what faith in action looks like in their context.
Okay, keep going. What else?
Look at their podcast channel, PCEST. It stands for Pastor Ho's Church Education Study Time. They've put out over 4,300 episodes.
4,300 podcast episodes.
Yep. And that's resulted in currently over 668,000 downloads.
Wow. And that's the existing stuff. What about the new YouTube channel launched this year?
The Gospel Big Refrigerator Medicine Box.
Yeah.
Since March. And just these last 4 or 5 months, they've uploaded over 700 programs just to that channel.
700 in less than half a year.
The team keeps up this incredible pace. They maintain 4 to 6 different content packages daily.
Which means
they're consistently uploading 10 or more programs every day across their various platforms.
It's 10 or more a day.
The source gives a snapshot. One day, September 21st, they uploaded 19 different programs.
19. In one day. If you just look at those numbers on a spreadsheet, your first thought is probably, how? How is that sustainable? How is that even possible?
Right. It's unheard of for standard media companies, let alone a single church ministry in Hualien.
So what's the takeaway from these crazy numbers? What's the so what?
So what isn't necessarily the audience size right now or even the download count, impressive as it is. The real lesson is the discipline, the sheer execution required to maintain that schedule.
It comes back to obedience and action.
Exactly. Pastor Hughes' conviction, as the source conveys it, is crystal clear. This relentless work isn't for personal fame, it's not to build power, it's not even really about maximizing metrics for their own sake.
It's purely about the mission.
Purely about fulfilling the mission of Jesus Christ's gospel, about the diligent, continuous expansion of God's kingdom through consistent daily effort. The action, the implementation, that's what defines their faith.
So bringing this whole deep dive full circle then.
Yeah, the core belief driving all this seems to be that God isn't limited by our metrics, by low view counts at the start, or whether we get famous doing it.
What matters is the work itself.
What advances the kingdom, in this view, is the effort, the diligence. Working faithfully on those small, sometimes unseen, repeated tasks like uploading 5, 10, 19 programs a day that, over time, add up to these seemingly impossible numbers.
They're living out that Saunderson quote, treating the future kingdom as real today.
They really are, acting as if it's already here through their work.
So the message for everyone listening, whether you're involved in ministry, running a business, pursuing a professional goal, this mandate of execution applies, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Just like Pastor Hughes' team is acting on the certainty of their unseen goal, the call is to pursue your God-given mission, whatever it is, with that same kind of continuous, persistent action.
Like the source says, even a small candlelight, if you keep it burning diligently, can push back a lot of darkness.
That persistence matters.
Which leaves us with a final, maybe provocative thought for you to consider, drawing straight from that definition of active faith.
If faith truly is treating the future as today, and the unseen as the seen, then what concrete action, what specific doing are you maybe avoiding right now, today, simply because you can't quite measure its ultimate result yet?
That gap, right, between believing something and actually implementing it.
That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where real diligence, real execution begins.
We've taken the deep dive into faith and execution. Now it's time for you to think about the doing.
Until next time.